Hey guys, happy 2026. Hope everyone had a great Christmas and New Year's, and we're back with our third and final video in our Lovable X N8N series. So in this one today, we're going to be going and essentially hooking up the chatbot that we created earlier on within the initial prompt that we used to build this website. If you need to go back and look at any of those videos, you can, in terms of how we set this up. And again, we have done this all for free so far, which is great. Before we get stuck into the video, just wanted to let you all know that we have a really exciting announcement. So we've been verified as a N8N affiliate. So if anyone's looking to get started with N8N in 2026, I will have a link to a 14-day free trial for N8N in the description of this video and in the bio on the channel's profile. So essentially what we're going to do today is just talk through setting up our chatbot, as well as just a really quick run through of getting our information into our vector store. So the fact that we have a vector store means that our AI agent is going to be using RAG in order to provide our customers with real, genuine responses to the questions based on business information. So let's get started. So obviously, as I mentioned before, we've already got all of this set up, and we're pretty much at a point now where all we need to do is just set up the back-end functionality of our chatbot. And so there's a few steps that we need to go through first. So what we'll do first is we'll create our workflow, or I'll talk through the workflow that we've got here. As always, this will be available for you to download for free through the standard GitHub repo that I have linked in the description. So what I'm going to do is just talk through each of the steps here so that we can work through this and be good to go. So step one here is just around setting up our webhook. So we just want to add in a webhook node. Within our webhook, all we want to do is leave it pretty much like as it comes, but we need to change a couple of things. So the first thing is to change our HTTP method to post. So just in here and post, and then with respond, use respond to webhook node. So the next thing we're going to do is set and edit fields. So basically here we're going to be setting these parameters as the message or the request from the customer or from the potential client, and then just a session ID as well. So the session ID is really important because it allows you to utilize memory further down the line. If you don't have a session ID, then you can't use the memory function, which we want our agents to be able to essentially remember context and remember the questions and the answers that they provided to our customer at that point. And the way that we have this set up is that whenever a customer refreshes the site or comes back, they'll get themselves a new session ID, which Lovable creates on its own for us. And we'll talk as well when we get into the actual building of the back end of the chatbot through Lovable, how we actually do that. So next we go into our AI agent, and this is why we used the set node earlier to get our JSON.request so that we knew what, or so that our AI agent knows what our customer's request is. Within the system message, again, this will all be in there for you. But essentially what this is set up specifically for our pretend business plum care solution. So obviously you can take this, which will be in the workflow that I share with you guys that you can download for free, and you can just pop it into ChatGPT or another AI model and just ask it to adjust it based on your specific business. So for example, if you had a real estate agency, you would need to change that to the name. And then change anything specifically around that. So this is built specifically for our plumbing business, or our pretend plumbing business. So a couple things we've got in here. We've obviously got our chat model, so you guys can utilize whatever you want. You can go like I did with OpenRouter, or if you prefer to use a specific model, you can go with that specific model. Again, I do have a video on the channel explaining how to connect all this and set it up if you do have any questions. Next, we're going to add on our simple memory. So literally all we're doing is just memory, simple memory, and then I just prefer to make the context window a little bit longer. So that's going to be 10 or essentially like 10 messages, which just essentially means it's going to remember 10 messages of context for that customer. So you can increase that if you think you need to, but yeah, I don't think you're really going to have much more than, or many more than 10 messages back and forth. Next one here is our Pinecone vector store. So just tool, and then we can type in Pinecone vector store, and I'll just delete this one. But a couple of settings we want to set up in here. So make sure that the operation mode is set as retrieve documents as tool for AI agent. In terms of setting up your credentials, again, I do have another video already going through all that. You can go back to, I believe I have a video around RAG agents already that goes through the detail of how to set up those credentials. Within the description here, we're basically just telling it why on what this tool is going to be used for. So call this tool in order to get the information required to answer all customer questions about the business plum care solutions. Within our Pinecone index, we just want to select the index. So again, we need to make a new index if you haven't already, and put your document into there, which I've got a really quick supporting workflow at the bottom of this one here in order to quickly add documents if you need to, or again, if you go back to the video that I've made around RAG agents, you can find a detailed walkthrough there. So then just making sure that we also add options and then the Pinecone namespace. So Plum Care Solutions. So that's the name of the namespace, and then that's the name of the index. In terms of the limit, 4 is probably enough. That's just essentially the number of responses that it will provide. Generally speaking, you won't need any more than that, given that these are going to be fairly easy to answer or basic questions. So and then obviously with our embeddings, this one's important. So we need to make sure that the dimensions match whatever we set up our index as. So I've set up all of my index with 1536 dimensions. Again, that's all broken down in detail in my other video. Just within the prompt, just a couple of things to keep in mind is I have specifically stated to not make up answers, to not assume answers, and to only answer the questions using information from the Pinecone vector store. So that's really important in ensuring that the RAG agent only uses the information within your document to provide answers. You don't want it making things up or pulling something randomly off the internet and giving inaccurate information. And then what I've also just stated as well is if you can't confidently answer based on the retrieved knowledge, just respond with, I don't have information to answer that accurately. Please visit our contact page and fill out the contact form, and a member of the Plum Care Solutions team will get back to you. So that links into our video from the last time where they can submit their request, and then we'll get basically an automated notification that someone submitted a request, what the request is, their contact details, and the customer will also get like a confirmation email as well. And then the last one that we have here is just our respond to webhook node. So we just want a response body. So we want to respond with JSON, and then we want to have our response body written like this. So essentially, as long as you copy and paste or just use the workflow that I provide, you don't need to change anything here. But what we need to do is make sure that this outputs in a way that our AI agents can really easily, oh, sorry, not our AI agents, our Lovable backend can essentially pass that data and then provide it back to us in, I guess, a human form. And then what we've got down here is just a really basic, I guess, document loader for our Pinecone vector store. So rather than having to worry about adding in, Google Drive nodes or whatever it is, just really simply what we can do is just have an on-form submission trigger. And then we just want to have one element. We want the element type to be files, and then allow multiple files in case you want that, so that when we trigger this step, what you can see is we can just simply upload files as we want. So what we then want to have is just our Pinecone vector store. So we can see we've got our Plum Care Solutions. I've left the batch size exactly the same, operation mode, insert documents, Pinecone namespace, Plum Care Solutions. And then we've got a couple of things here. So we've got our embeddings model. So again, like the one we have on our agent, You can see the dimensions are the same. And then we've got our default data loader. So we just want the type of data to be JSON, or we can have it as binary. That's probably a better one considering we're using documents rather than raw JSON. And then what we want to do is make sure that we automatically detect the MIME type. And then you'll need to add an option to do text splitting and then go custom. And then you'll see this pop up down here. And then you can just leave this as is default unless you want to change it. But for the sake of what we're doing, that should be totally fine because there's not a ridiculous amount of information and it's not super detailed or difficult in terms of there's no tables or anything like that. So again, if you want a deep dive or more detailed run through of how to set this up, there is a video on my channel for that already. So next thing that we need to do is basically set up our Lovable chatbot to be able to send the customer request or whatever the customer's typing into here. So their message, send it to our webhook, be received and then processed and then sent back by our AI agent. So the way that we do that is essentially we need to prompt it to build a pretty specific, or prompt it to add specific functionality to our site. So I will actually have a supporting document for this that has the specific prompt. But essentially what we're going to be doing is just making it set up session IDs, giving it some really clear structure around how to do that, when to create new ones, when to maintain current ones. And then the other thing is ensuring that we give it the webhook ID, or the webhook URL, I should say. So in my case, I'm going to use the test one today, but obviously when you go to production and you're running this, you may just need to go back and just say, hey, please change the webhook for the chatbot from this to this. So we're just using our test one at the moment. So essentially all I did, and we can go back and have a look through some of the chat that I was doing with it earlier today, is I just provided it the new, where are we? I just provided it the new webhook and then basically just said to it, this is how it will receive the JSON response, and we'll kind of go through how to look at that and how to actually provide that response, because chances are when you first try and run this, it will respond, but it will provide it in a really messy output that doesn't look, I guess, human. It will provide like the raw JSON. So as you can see here, what I've basically done is provided an example of the output and then just basically said that this is what it's replying with, but this is what I want it to show in the chat. So I only want it to show the plain text here. I don't want it to show all the JSON and the quotes and things like that. What I did as well was basically this is the prompt around creating the session IDs. So again, this will be in a supporting document that you guys can access along with the workflow in the GitHub repo. So I'm not going to go through in too much detail. And then, yeah, essentially once we've done that, we can do a bit of a test. So what we can do is, because I have this on the test and not the production URL, I need to execute it. I can't just run it. So what I'm going to do is just go and get a test event, and then I'm just going to type in what are your standard operations. So what you're going to see is it's going to pop up with a I'm having trouble connecting, please try again later. And the reason for that is because it's only triggering this first node. It's not responding with any result or outcome. So what I'm going to do for the moment is just pin this. And what we can see in here is a few things. So the main ones that we're looking for here are the message. So this is what our customer's asking. And then we've got our session ID here. So they're the two main things that we need. The rest we don't really need. In our edit fields, we can see that we've got our request, and then that's defined by the json.body.message, and then our headers is defined by json.headers brackets x session ID. So we'll execute this step here, and then what we can see is the output here. We now have our request and our session ID. So we'll pin that one and we'll go to the next step, which is within our AI agent. So when we're setting up our AI agent, we need to have our prompt, so our user message as well as our system message. So our prompt is going to be the question that our customer is asking. So we set that here in the edit fields with our request. So you would just drop and drag that into there. And then within the memory tool as well, what it's going to ask for is a key, session key from the previous node. So if you follow what I did, you don't need to change anything, but if you've set your edit fields as a different name, you may need to go define below and then drag that in like that instead. But because we set that up to be specifically called session ID in the same format that it needs, we don't need to do anything here. So what we can do now is execute this step and we can see the response from our AI agent. Cool. So what we can see here is Plum Care Solutions standard operating hours are from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So what I'll do is quickly open the document so that we can have a look at that and we can see if that's accurate. Cool. So if we come back to our AI agent, we can see Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Saturday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then what we can see in here is we've got 7 a.m. to 6 p.m, Saturday 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we can see now that it's providing the right responses, and so now we just need to send that back to Lovable. So within our respond to webhook node, we want to respond with JSON, and then again, the response body, you can just leave that as is. One thing to keep in mind is you need to structure it exactly like this or else it won't work. If you just try and drag this in, you're going to get an error. The reason why is because we want to provide the specific response to our to Lovable, because that's how we've set it up. We've set it up so that it understands it's going to receive a JSON body that is called chat response and then the contents of that as well. So if we then were to execute this step, we can see that we just have the output here, exactly how we want it responded. So now if we unpin these and we click execute workflow rather than just triggering from one, we can come back here and go, what are your standard operating? And now we can see that we've got that response. So Plum Care Solutions standard operating hours are Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on a Saturday. So the other thing that we want to test it for is to make sure that if it doesn't know the answer to something, that we basically direct it to our contact us page instead. So what we can try doing is coming up with a question, looking at the issues here. And we can try and find a question. So we can kind of ask something like, what is the name of the business owner, the person, rather than the business itself, because it doesn't have the answer to that. What is the name of the business owner? Cool. So we can see I don't have enough information to answer that correctly. Please visit our contact us page and fill out the contact form. A member of our team will get back to you. So that's a response we want. We don't want it making up answers. We don't want it, trying to provide information that's inaccurate. If ever it's not sure, it just directs them to our contact us page, and then our customers can fill out that, and then we can get back to them. So that's pretty much it in terms of that today, guys. But as you can see, pretty straightforward, but once you have it all working and ready to go, it can add a really helpful tool for yourself or for clients as well. Just as a reminder, all the information that we've gone through today, the resources in terms of the prompts that I provided Lovable in order to set up this backend are available on my GitHub repo, so you guys can go and grab that for free. And yeah, keep an eye out. We'll have some more content coming as we go into 2026.